former wedding videographer, when doing the letter read the bride at the end said, which I quote, "Well, that was ducking stupid. I cut that part out in the final video. Edit." The couple reads their letter from their partner prior to the wedding. She just got done reading the groom's letter and was talking about what he wrote. To be fair, what he wrote was not exactly Shakespeare, but still a harsh response. And I have to tell this one too, I didn't need a sixth sense when I heard that on their honeymoon. The bride cheated on the groom. So the groom's parents didn't want the photos or the video I had shot. Instead, they wanted me to sue her for the remainder of the money they owed me. I told them I was sorry, but they signed the contract, so they had to pay. The bride was a total witch to him all day at the wedding. He was absolutely heartbroken. And yes, they sent me a check for the remainder. And I still have all the photos, developed and collecting dust in a pile still in the lab bag I brought them home in. This was in 2003, and I can't bring myself to throw them away. The best part, I was all set to do it, and then the new fiancé pulled the plug. Turns out she didn't want any memories of the first wedding being involved. So I was fired as soon as I was hired. A friend of mine is a fairly successful engagement, marriage photographer, as well as a relationship blogger. She says she can tell how in love a couple is based on whether they pay attention to each other during the photos of her, the photographer. I guess it's the contrast of sharing an experience together versus fretting over optics. I've never heard her mention specific red flags, but she speaks very highly of couples who are willing to be silly and adventurous in their engagement shoots over those who are just taking the most glamorous, streamlined portraits. She doesn't pose people. She follows them around as they hike, rock climb, build campfires, whatever. That's why their attention is significant. It's supposed to be a candid experience and capture their natural dynamic. Red flag: the groom winking at both my assistant and I during the ceremony. He was not winking in the sense that he might have been tearing up or had something in his eye, but there was a part in the ceremony where the couple sat down and he would lean his head back in his chair, look past his soon-to-be wife and wink at me, or look over his left shoulder and wink at my assistant. It was bizarre. Was a wedding photographer. I think you can kind of tell if they're going to stay together forever based on how they handle all the little, and sometimes even big, problems a wedding day can bring. There was one couple's story I love to tell. They are not your typical bride and groom. They had their wedding in a forest where you could also go climbing. Sorry, don't know what they are called. With a big wooden house and fireplace in front. All vegan food and a lot of friends with lots of dogs. She was in her sweatpants and a Mickey Mouse t-shirt at that time, and her soon-to-be husband took off his suit, put on a big white shirt, stood there in his boxer shorts and just said, "Well, we have to go," 'cause the ceremony person had to leave an hour later. And she just laughed and went with it. I was in shock, but other than it being strange to have hairy man legs in my wedding photos, taking the pictures was really fun, and they were totally relaxed. I'm pretty sure they will be doing well. Wedding band guitar player here. Drunken gorilla-sized groom physically attacked us when we cut off the music after already going over our contracted time an hour. Mother of the groom got into the mix and pulled him back. Bride was in tears. We did not get a 5-star review, so that was a red flag. They lasted a few months. I used to work in day of wedding coordination, and I remember 2 couples that I couldn't wait to hear about the divorce. When you pay a wedding coordinator, You only pay for the things the coordinator orders: plans, flowers, catering, DJ, plus coordinator fees. Anything else couples buy, dresses, gifts, suits, etc., are added. We estimated this to be a $500,000 wedding, easy. The bride was a total sweetheart when I met her. The groom seemed quiet, but was very easygoing. Always nice to have a sober groom, and he didn't drink a drop during the day. Then the videographer left to take some venue shots. My clothes were trashy. The DJ's computer was a PC. The bar staff were wearing red vests and she hates vests. Photographer came back and she was an angel again. The second was a wedding of a general and pediatric surgeon in the local hospital. Paid for their own beautiful and in their means wedding. But there was a mix-up day at the wedding. The 200 chairs that were supposed to be moved to the third story of the historic building weren't taken upstairs. So my boss, the other assistant, and the 8-month pregnant venue coordinator start carrying chairs upstairs. 3 flights. After the wedding, we had to do it again, but down. The father of the groom started helping us. We begged him to enjoy his son's day, but he responded that if it were his daughter doing this, he'd be furious. Groom comes by and tells his dad to stop helping the pregnant woman stack chairs. Groom told his dad that maybe if we had applied ourselves a little more, we wouldn't have been taking out the trash at a successful couple's wedding. Clearly he didn't know how much his wife was paying us. My husband and I are wedding photographers. We've been pretty lucky so far and haven't had too many crazies. We have stayed friends with a few of the couples and see them regularly. The one couple we hope we never see again fought the entire wedding day. Then we had to Photoshop a smile onto the groom a couple of times so he at least looked happy in the ceremony of all things. To describe what he looked like, I would compare him to a Polish meat butcher with transitions lensed glasses. Totally brutal. I have no idea if they are together still, but I would say not. I am a videographer. Most weddings we video are fairly smooth. Couple is happy. Family cries tears of joy. That bit. We did film one wedding that seemed fine right up until the aisle walk. We video the bride and groom prep. They have 2 suites, one for the ladies and one for the gentlemen. Everyone is drinking. Not light beer either. I mean knocking back shots. Empty bottles everywhere. Everyone is pretty carefree, upbeat, and ready to party, the bride and groom most of all. This is going to be the easiest wedding we film this year. Or so we thought. Now everyone is seated in the ceremony hall. Bridesmaids start walking down the aisle. All beautiful. The bride walks in with her father. At this point, I'm filming the groom and his reaction. My partner is recording the groom and her father. I see the best man in my viewfinder pull out a flask from his jacket pocket. The rest of the men did the same except groom this year. So this is clearly planned. The best man speaks loud enough over the music so people turn to him away from the bride. But if you do, quote, he points at the bride with his flask hand and finishes, "Fuck you." Here's the groom name. They all drink to their frat boy toast. The best man hands the groom his flask and he drinks it laughing. I have never watched a video more than I have the reaction of the bride and her father. Jaw dropped, speechless. And it's not done. The officiant asks the bride, "Do you take groom yada yada?" And she surprisingly, yet weakly, says yes. The officiant asks the same of the groom and instead of just saying yes, he screams, "Duck da duck, yeah I do." Bride just face palms herself in embarrassment. I could go on with more stories about this wedding, but this just about the bride and groom is here. Needless to say, I think that's a big red flag. TL. Dr. Best Man raises his flask as bride is walking down the aisle and says, "Here's to bride. Here's to groom. May you never disagree. But if you do, duck you," pointing at bride. "Here's to groom is here." All groomsmen drink from flasks, including the groom. I used to help a buddy of mine do wedding videos back in college. I found the bigger the country hit they used for the wedding song, the shorter the marriage. Obscure songs seem to last longer. Wedding photographer here. Been shooting for a while. Of late with a reputed brand in Singapore. Don't think anyone knows me on Reddit, so I'm pretty safe. I'm also recently married, so I understand the signs I see, having gone through them, and hopefully and thankfully are able to recognize and can be mature through them with my wife when we see them. Surface. Disclaimer: not all the time the red flags equate to a breakup in marriage. You'll be surprised how durable relationships are and how much compromise and forgiveness goes through a marriage. If you can't understand that, you either need to experience marriage or are too immature to understand it.